The winter night was merciless, the kind that bit into skin and made every breath a small cloud of frost, and for David Miller, it was just another evening of walking home after his second shift at the auto repair shop, boots crunching in the snow, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, mind consumed with the endless math of bills and groceries and how to stretch $50 until payday. David was 35, a widowed father of a 6-year-old boy named Ethan, and though life had stripped him of many comforts, it had never taken away his determination to protect his son and keep a roof over their heads. But tonight, as he turned the corner onto the dimly lit street that led to their tiny 2-bedroom rental, he noticed something unusual, a small figure huddled on the bus stop bench, shivering beneath a thin jacket, knees pulled up to her chest. At first, he thought it was just another late commuter waiting for the bus, but as he drew closer, the truth hit him. She was just a girl, maybe 16 or 17, with tangled hair, red-rimmed eyes, and a face pale from cold and hunger. And then he saw it, the rounded swell of her belly beneath the jacket. She was pregnant. His steps slowed. Every rational thought told him to keep walking. He had enough problems, enough responsibilities, but something deep inside, perhaps the same part of him that once drove him to run into a burning kitchen to save Ethan when he was just a toddler, made him stop. "You okay?" he asked gently, his breath fogging in the air. The girl's eyes darted to him, wary and frightened, as if she expected him to hurt her. "I'm fine," she murmured, but her teeth were chattering and her lips were turning blue. David glanced up and down the empty street. No buses were coming, and no one else seemed to care that a young pregnant girl was freezing to death on a public bench. He hesitated only a second longer before shrugging off his thick work jacket and draping it over her shoulders. "Look, I don't know what's going on," he said, "but you can't stay out here. You'll get sick, or worse." She shook her head. I have nowhere to go." The words were so soft they were nearly lost in the wind, but they hit him like a punch. He thought of Ethan asleep in their warm apartment, of the hot soup simmering in the crockpot, of how his late wife used to say, "You can't save everyone, David, but you can save someone." He extended a hand. "Come on. My place isn't much, but it's warm." For a long moment, she just stared at him, eyes glistening, weighing whether to trust this tired, oil-stained stranger. Finally, with a trembling breath, she took his hand. Her name, he learned as they trudged through the snow, was Lily. She had been kicked out by her mother 2 months ago after refusing to give up her baby, and since then she'd been sleeping in shelters, sometimes on friends' couches, but lately she'd been on the street. She was 8 months along. David didn't ask about the father, the way her voice cracked when she mentioned her past was enough for him to know it was a wound best left untouched for now. When they reached his apartment, Ethan was curled up on the couch under a blanket, cartoons flickering on the TV. The boy looked up with wide eyes as David led Lily inside, and David crouched to his son's level. "Buddy, this is Lily. She's going to stay with us for a while, okay?" Ethan blinked, then smiled shyly. "Hi." Lily managed a weak smile in return. David got her a bowl of hot soup, and as she ate, he couldn't help noticing the way her hands shook, not just from cold but from exhaustion, from carrying a burden too heavy for someone so young. That night, he set her up in the small guest room, which was really just a storage space with a bed in it, and told her she could stay as long as she needed. Over the next few days, Lily barely spoke, keeping mostly to herself, helping with small chores to repay what she called the debt of him letting her stay. But David didn't want repayment, he just wanted to make sure she was safe. Slowly, he learned fragments of her story: an absent father, a mother who chose a boyfriend over her own daughter, a pregnancy born out of a brief, misguided attempt at love that ended in betrayal. And yet, despite everything, there was a quiet strength in her, a determination to protect the life growing inside her. One evening, as snow fell outside and the three of them sat eating dinner together, David noticed something different. Lily was smiling. Not the forced, polite smile she'd worn before, but a real, soft smile as she watched Ethan tell a story about school. It was then David realized that, without meaning to, they were becoming something like a family. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. Just 2 weeks after Lily arrived, David's boss at the auto shop cut his hours due to slow business. Money, already tight, became even tighter. He considered telling Lily she might have to find another place to stay, not because he wanted her to leave, but because he wasn't sure he could afford to feed another mouth. But each time he saw her rubbing her belly and talking softly to her unborn baby, he knew he couldn't turn her out. Then, one freezing night in late January, Lily went into labor. David had never driven so fast in his life, racing through icy streets to get her to the hospital while Ethan sat in the back seat holding her hand. Hours later, in the pale light of dawn, Lily gave birth to a baby girl. She named her Hope. David stood by her side, holding the tiny bundle, feeling an unexpected rush of protectiveness toward this child who wasn't his by blood but already felt like part of him. As the days passed, Lily's gratitude was quiet but deep. She started helping more around the house, sometimes watching Ethan when David worked late. And slowly, their little apartment began to feel less like a place of survival and more like a home. What none of them knew was that this moment, this act of kindness on a freezing winter night, would set into motion a chain of events that, years later, would change David's life in ways he could never imagine. But that is a story for the next chapter. Before we continue, if you've been touched by what you've heard so far, take a moment to subscribe to this channel, because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the most powerful stories you'll ever hear, and you won't want to miss what happens next.